first we need to start to know who we are and how we want to show up. So, and I draw a link here to values. So what is important to me, what motivates me, what am I deeply passionate about, and make sure that I am that, or I show up as that. And there are different ways that we can get helped to understand what that looks like. But yeah, I would say that that's the core. And it doesn't matter if you're a soccer mom, or you're a CEO of a big company, or you run your own business and you're an entrepreneur. I would say that that's the core, no matter where you are, really.
Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Create Your Life. I am your host, Simone Leah. So I just wanted to let you guys know that today's interview is actually an interview that I recorded about a year ago when I ran an online event called the Soul-Led Entrepreneurs Summit. It was a really, really, really wonderful event. I had some beautiful, amazing speakers talking about things like connecting with your intuition and how you can use that in your business, how to do Facebook advertising, how to do marketing as a soul-led entrepreneur, all of these cool things to do with business, entrepreneurship, and actually also spirituality and connecting within. And so these interviews were so wonderful that I really wanted to be able to share them with you now. So if when you're watching this, you see or hear the word soul-led entrepreneurs, this is still the Create Your Life show, but these interviews were just too good for me to keep to myself any longer. So I really, really, really hope you guys enjoy this interview, and I can't wait to connect with you again soon. Welcome back to Soul-Led Entrepreneurs. My name is Simone Leah, and I will be your host today. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Maria Baeck. Maria is someone who spent 20 years in the corporate world until one day she just couldn't ignore that little voice inside. So the chat that I had planned with Maria today was about soulful leading and how to be a leader in any form, that needs to come from within. So if you want to be a leader in a massive Fortune 500 company, or a solopreneur who's just putting on their first couple of staff members, to be able to lead, you really need to have a grasp on yourself and who you are, what your values are, and then be able to share that to be able to lead in an effective way. So the way that went was understanding how to feel into and lean into that intuition, and understanding who we are and how we can use that understanding and that connection to self and that connection to something higher that guides us and gives us intuition, and how we can use those things in our everyday life and business life to steer us in the right direction based on our values and what we want to happen, but without getting too fixed to the outcomes. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm here today with Maria Baeck to talk about soulful leading. How are you, Maria? Thank you for being here.
Hi, Simone. Thank you for having me. I'm great. Sun's actually coming out now in the UK from having been a very blustery morning, so all good.
Yay, it's so exciting. I feel so blessed to be able to talk to you today about soulful leading. It's something that's obviously very important to both of us. How would you say, or what would you say soulful leading is, and how would that apply to entrepreneurs?
Soulful leading, or being a soulful leader, is you have a knowing within yourself that that for me anyway, and I say that now because the whole point of actually being a soulful leader is that you know who you are. That's sort of the cornerstone. And so being a soulful leader is also bringing in the spiritual side of you, or the soulful side that we might not always show other people, and bring that together with linearity and logic, if that's been our training, but also bring it into business so that we create a whole ecosystem where we can show up fully.
Yeah. Okay. So if someone was stepping up into this journey of wanting to be a soulful leader, like where do they kind of need to start? Is it the same skills for, say, a soccer mum as opposed to like a CEO of a top company? Is it the same sort of knowing, or is it different skills? Or yeah.
Good question. And as is often the case, there's not just one answer. But I would say that first we need to start to know who we are and how we want to show up. So, and I draw a link here to values. So what is important to me, what motivates me, what am I deeply passionate about, and make sure that I am that, or I show up as that. And there are different ways that we can get helped to understand what that looks like. But yeah, I would say that that's the core. And it doesn't matter if you're a soccer mom, or you're a CEO of a big company, or you run your own business and you're an entrepreneur. I would say that that's the core, no matter where you are, really.
Yeah. So how would someone go about tapping into, like, if we're starting with the values, how would someone go about to tapping into those values and understanding what values they hold?
Yeah, so there are many different ways that we can explore our values, and there are different methodologies to doing it. I tend to, and I prefer to think about values as a desired outcome. So and that is anchored in what I'm passionate about and what deeply motivates me. And so for me, the best discovery method is to have a conversation about it. And if you were to want to explore your values, I would ask you questions and just listen to what you're saying, and pick out the things that energetically stand out to me as the most alive pieces, and then to help you create a framework that you can more easily step into how you need to show up. Then we'll look at what is my everyday experience or lived experience when there is alignment with my desired outcome. So, and again, this is personal and very subjective. So, your answer will be different from my answer. And then also taking it a bit deeper, going into, okay, so who do I need to be? What's my daily practice? What do I need to stay connected with to make sure that I am in alignment with the desired outcome, my core values?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That was a bit of a very deep dive, but
yeah. So, like, it does make sense. Would we be able to get a little bit of an example of what a desired outcome could be?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, there can be anything that, we can talk about freedom, we can talk about health, we can talk about happiness, we can talk about joy, harmony. I mean, all these things they're quite broad, obviously, but so if we talk about harmony, for example, as a desired outcome, then or a value, this is very important for me. I want harmony to be present in my life. Then I would look at, okay, so what does harmony mean to me, and what does it look like when there is harmony around me? And maybe I can say balanced relationships could be my answer. And so, okay, so when I know that my relationships around me are balanced and feel feel good, then I know that we're gonna, if we don't already experience harmony, we will. And then, so how do I need to be if I want to be in alignment with harmony? Then it can be stay centered. I might have a specific practice, a spiritual practice that I do, and make sure that I stay connected to that practice, because then I know that harmony will be the outcome. Does that make sense?
Yes, it totally, definitely makes sense. Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, so it's more about figuring out your values and then how you can show up with those values.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does it come, like, do people often have values that aren't in alignment with what they actually want? Is it one of those things where sometimes people, they're like, well, I want to do this, but they've got an opposing view that needs to kind of become into an alignment, for example? And I can give you an example
Yeah.
if that's not clear, sorry.
Well, I think I know what you mean. So the one client, she discovered in this process that the values that she had previously, they came from a stressful situation, an outcome from a heartbreak, actually a breakup. And so she had then created certain things or values that to keep her safe, basically. And so in our process, she discovered that, oh, actually, these come from a lack perspective, or they come from heartbreak. So we came up with a completely new set of values for her. Yeah. And I noticed for myself that when I did this process, that when I looked at what my lived experience would be, I noticed that, oh God, there are situations in my life where this is actually not true. So then I have a choice, what do I do about it? Do I talk to, it happened to be a couple of relationships or connections that weren't quite in alignment. And so I said, what do I do about this? Do I speak to them? Do I, break the connection? What do I do? How do I want to take this forward? And so I feel like there is, and I know there is, you might never have this, explored your values at all. And so then you might either feel all over the place because you don't have an anchoring point, or you have set values before and now you've outlived them, or you've evolved beyond them, and so it's time for an upgrade. And that could also be a reason why there might be a misalignment.
Yeah. I've got two things I want to ask that I think would add so much value, and I'm like, please don't forget one of them. So say, for example, someone had been working for say 10 to 15 years, and they were feeling the call within and they wanted to make some changes, but their values were around safety and being able to provide and looking after their family, yet they were feeling this call for freedom and exploration and creation. How would you go about, like, can someone just decide, I want these new values, or?
Yes, is the short answer. But so for me, it is very much a process of feeling the value within. So yes, I mean, when I first created this process, my only experience from exploring values had been you talk about the values, you order them in, from 1 to however many you have, put the list on the wall, and that's that. And I was like, that's a very intellectual exercise for me personally. And so you can decide what your values are, yes, but the question is why, where do you come from? Is it, going into like a coaching mode, or is it a moving towards motivation or a moving away from motivation? Are you trying to escape or move away from a situation, or are you moving towards something that really inspires you? And so I feel like I actually come from a background in corporate where I had exactly that situation. I woke up one day, the proverbial one day, 20 years in, I was like, oh my God, this is, I'd had a whale of a time. I was good at what I did. I really enjoyed it. And then one day, boom, no, there's something missing here. I don't know really what it is, but I feel a calling to change things. And in my life, that happened to take the form of moving countries. One does not have to do that, but I did. I moved from Sweden to the UK. But I discovered that I couldn't show up at work in my role fully, because I was expected to behave and show up in a certain way, and that then limited my freedom, or my sense of freedom, and I wasn't aware at the time, but I feel like my soul had gone to sleep. That's how I sort of poetically maybe express that. But so I feel like what I did, I tried to figure out, and it's, it takes time, and I didn't have any guides or teachers at the time, but to understand what really is important to me, and then slowly work on the inside to make sure that, I stay true to me. And at first I thought, oh my God, this is going to just ripple and explode in the whole, how can I even do this? But as it turned out, I could, because that knowing who I am on the inside means that I will emanate a different energy. I will send out a different vibration. And so over time, I've noticed that my colleagues, they're responding to me in a completely different way than they respond to all the other colleagues. And yeah, sorry, I'm a bit of a tangent here, but I feel like it is absolutely possible to decide what your values are. My recommendation is to do that by listening to what you're really passionate about, what really motivates you in life, and then understand who you need to be, and then how you want to show up. Because it's only by our showing up that we can create change.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you. So you're saying that over time you noticed a difference between other co-workers and other people you were working with. Does that mean the shift from point A of going, I can't do this anymore this way, I need to connect in, to actually fully embodying that took a little bit of time? Or yeah, are you able
Yes.
to like share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was very hesitant. I'm going to admit, I was very hesitant at the beginning to, to bring my I call it spiritual practice. And mentor of mine at the time, this was 2010, I believe. She said to me, Maria, you can no longer keep your work life and your spiritual practice, your personal practice separate. You need to bring them together. And I said, really? No. How? No, that, because at the time I'm very big on intuition and listening for inner guidance. And at the time I was honing this and cultivating this practice. And so I was using a pendulum. I don't know if that might be too woo-woo for some people, but I was using a pendulum as a backup to understand my answers and responses. And, and I thought, I can't bring a pendulum into the office. God, they're going to think that I'm completely mad. I can't do this. And so, but I found a way to then use my body to listen for the resonance. And I only then try to follow the resonance in my body in my everyday work. And so I wasn't shouting about it. I wasn't proclaiming it at the, in the kitchen in the morning, around the morning coffee. I was just going about doing my thing. And years later, colleagues, my colleagues said to me, yeah, Maria, you always bring a completely different perspective. You always have a very open stance and a very, what's the word I'm looking for? A very, the word that comes to me is agreeable energy. That's a complete, I hardly ever use that word. I don't know why I say it now, but so it's very, I show up as me. And there is the way that I understand what they said is that, you are accepting, you're open, and yeah, that, sorry, that was another tangent, wasn't it?
No, I love the tangents. No, absolutely love tangents completely. Yeah. So for someone who is wanting to take that path, I think that it's nice for people to understand that it doesn't have to be, all right, I'm going to go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow a whole different person. Like it can just be a gradual thing that just evolves naturally.
Yes.
As opposed to just straight away, changing countries.
Yes.
But
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. But I do love that you did that too. I think that's amazing. Like there's so much bravery that comes with shifting to a different country as well. And especially going from Sweden to England, there's even language difference and, like that's a big move. So that is awesome. So if someone did want to start bringing in that more soulful practice into their more work life, like their either entrepreneurial life or their CEO life or, their business life, how do they go about just making decisions from the soul? Like, do you kind of get asked a question, then you're just like, wait, hang on, I'll just check. Or is it a little bit quicker than that and you just kind of instantly know, or did it take practice or?
It's all, yes to all three. Actually, it has taken practice, absolutely. It's right now, I mean, at this time, it's a very quick thing. I know, I feel it instantly. Sometimes I need, or I want to explore further. And so there is sometimes I might take a bit longer to come up with the final answer or the final decision, but I feel instantly what feels like a yes or what feels like a no. Or and I would say that because for me it showed up as, I call it a gentle squeeze around my upper arm. So this was I had no idea that I had this gift. And we all have this gift, by the way. But I was having a chat with a friend. We'd recently been like to a spiritual workshop kind of thing. And then we were throwing out questions. We were very curious about what we'd learned. And then I discovered, I felt like there was this gentle squeeze, like a tingly squeeze on my upper arms when, in response to some of the questions that I asked, to my friend, or shared with my friend. And it felt like, oh, that was a yes. And I started asking questions. Is my name Maria? Which it clearly is. And I would feel the tingle or the squeeze. And if I asked, is my name Simone? I wouldn't feel anything. And so that was the start. And so what I want to say with all that is that we all have a way that our body gives us these kinds of signals. And so having a space where you can explore what that might be for you. And I would imagine that most people already know, like the gut feel thing, pardon me, whether we feel it in our gut or we feel it somewhere else in our body.
Yeah. Do you think that gut feeling or that confirmation, do you think that can apply to any situation? Like, say someone was employing people, they use that tactic in employment and then again in deciding which way to go in marketing or whatever else comes up?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. What I have learned along the journey is that, I need to work just as much on myself to be a clear vessel, if you like, or a clear instrument. Because if I have a hidden desired outcome, I want a specific thing to happen, then, the intuition or the gut feel can be skewed. So it is important to make sure that you park yourself to the side, so to speak, and don't have any personal desires that sort of come into the mix. But absolutely, I mean, I've been following this since I committed to following my intuition and inner guidance in 2009, every decision making. And I have, no, maybe I can't say actually 100%, but very close to 100%. I always check in. And it's taken me, I way back then, I thought that I wanted to find employment in America. I was in the UK, thought I wanted to move to America to find a job, but my intuition was telling me, no, don't do this. You need to set out and become your own, start your own business. And I was like, but that's the complete opposite direction. What? No, I didn't understand it at the time. But so in hindsight, fast forward, I could not be, well, I don't know that obviously, but I could not have created what I have created had I only used my previous experience and knowledge in my decision making. So for me, having had the courage, I suppose, or, I trusted my intuition to add that to the mix when I made decisions, has meant that I ventured beyond my comfort zone. I ventured far and way beyond and created things that, yeah, it's just actually incredible. Yeah. Oh, that was a long answer to your question, but there you go.
No, it's great. So what would happen, for example, if someone was trying to follow their intuition and they hit a bit of resistance like you did with the wanting to move to America, but your intuition going, no, you've got to start your own business. How would someone navigate if they hit that resistance in their own path?
Yeah, I was terrified. I was thought, why, you know, I was so out of my comfort zone, and I was like, how do I navigate this? What do I do? And by being present to both the fear and the opportunity, a path I mean, I can't say 100%, but I would argue that more often than not, or in most cases, a path will appear. And so for me, that turned up as I was in employment. I was employed by a Swedish company living in the UK. And that the path turned up as to create my own company, become a contractor for the same company. And as it happened in my case, I used the recent tax reasons because of tax rules in the UK versus Sweden, and employment, and not having an employer in this country, and so on. So I actually had what I thought of as a valid, logical reason for why I wanted to take this step. So that was the path that appeared for me. And I always trust that there will be a path if we stay open and present to both the fear and the opportunity.
So would you say that in soulful leading and really connecting in, there does need to be an element of letting go of perceived outcomes and just trusting what comes through?
Yes. And I mean, it's always excellent to have an idea of where you're heading, a vision, but not exactly define what it's going to look like when you get there. And as you know, the life is a journey. So, you know, trying to pin an outcome at the very end, I mean, it's just an ongoing thing, isn't it? So, I would say letting go of a specific outcome. And I get nudges, so like 3 to 6 months out, I get a feel for where I might be or where I am heading. But I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. So, you know, everything that I've done over the last 10 years, well, maybe I should say thanks to the pandemic, I'm not sure, but I had the space to go a bit deeper, and everything just started to come together. Everything that I've been working on intuitively or from an, you know, inner guidance place over the last 10 years started to make sense. And so, and I say that, and I am floored actually by how the pieces are coming together in such a beautiful way. And I've trusted the path and listened at every turn. And the beauty about listening with every turn is that we can always reassess and make change direction. We're never stuck with, you know, even if I have made decisions and I've followed guidance and it hasn't turned out the way that I thought it might. And there's been some hardships in it as well. So, but there's always a learning. So why did this happen? And see it as a learning opportunity rather than, oh my God, my intuition was wrong and bad me, you know? So, yeah.
Okay.
I'll pause there.
No, it's great. So with that then, if we're letting go of the perceived outcome and just being open to what comes in, has the values that you had for yourself stayed the same through that process? And that's kind of been the anchor for what's been attracted in then? So that like the value system has been kind of like the guiding force, whereas the perceived outcomes have been let go, and just whatever fits in with the value system and where you kind of think you want to go has been where you've actually gone. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. My values, they have changed over time. As I have evolved, my values have changed, and I've opted to choose different words for, you know, my desired outcome, if you like, because I have evolved, and so everything has evolved with me. And it's an excellent question. Actually, nobody's ever asked this question before, so it's a great question. And I would argue that because my belief is, because I think about values and hold them as a desired outcome, yes, that is what I will attract. And by opening up and not having a fixed idea of the outcome, then the opportunities with the most life force, might sound a bit woo-woo, but is gonna come our way. And well, the question is what we do when they show up. Do we jump? Do we say yes, or do we say no? But I feel like the values can absolutely, and they do guide us. And the second layer I talked about earlier, my lived experience, if I then discover that something isn't, that something feels off, or it's not I don't experience it the same way that I have identified for myself, then I know that I need to do something. And so in my own process, I've been led to situations or circumstances and limiting beliefs that I've then had to unravel or release and let go of. And so yeah, it's a powerful combination, letting go of fixed outcome and values.
Yeah. So in the process of letting go of beliefs that have come up, have you found that you can do that on your own, or do you always need someone to help you do that? Or is it a combination of both, in that if someone was to come up with a limiting belief around something?
It's always helpful to have somebody else. I mean, it is possible, absolutely, to unravel a limiting belief and see, look it in the eye, so to speak. But it can be tricky to let go of, depending on how deep it is, because often the surface level beliefs that we have might come from a deep-rooted belief in, like, I'm not worthy, for example. And so getting down to the I'm not worthy can take some time. So it's always helpful to find somebody that can help you work with limiting beliefs. There are a ton of people out there, and I can give some suggestions if that were to be helpful. I mean, what do I want to say? Yeah, sorry. No, I'll pause there, I think. Otherwise, I'll go down into another rabbit hole.
No.
Yeah.
Rabbit holes are great. We love rabbit holes. So what if, so say someone was, let's come up with an example of wanting to put on a team, right? And they just were never getting the team that they wanted. How would they identify whether that was some sort of limiting belief that they had that was holding that back, or whether it was just bad luck?
Another excellent question. And so I would say, rather than starting with the limiting belief, I would say, okay, so what are either the company's values, that the team leader's values, and do the people that they attract, do they have the same values, or do they have a similar understanding of the values? Because the way let's say that we work for the same company, and one of the values of the company is I don't know, excellence as a yeah, I don't know where that came from, but anyway, so my understanding of excellence and how I need to show up is probably most likely going to be slightly different from yours. Yes, there is a definition of excellence in the dictionary, but how you understand excellence and how you will need to show up in your role within this company is going to be different from mine. And so I would argue that a team leader then can say, okay, so, these are the company values and these are mine. And do I attract the people that have similar values, or, is this how they want to operate? And if they are consistently attracting people that have very different value sets or have very different beliefs, yeah, then I'm somewhere, and it needs a sort of a bigger exploration, I would say, but there is a disjointment somewhere, and so I'm afraid I can't give a sort of a one size fits all answer to this one, but
yeah, okay, because in
that
some
makes sense.
cases it's a systems issue and not necessarily having the systems in place to support the outcome that you want in whatever you're doing, and in other cases it is a beliefs issue. So I guess that for someone who is wanting to figure out whether something is a beliefs issue or a not beliefs issue, it's more just taking that observer view of the situation in general and seeing whether there are any gaps in the situation, if that makes sense. So for example, if this was more leading to marketing and the right results weren't there, then potentially it's not necessarily that there's some belief holding you back from marketing. It's just that maybe you're not setting the right KPIs, or, you know, or getting enough feedback on certain types of, I don't know, on the pictures that you're using to advertise with, and you're just paying attention to the words and the copy. So I guess it's more just having that observer view to see whether or not you're taking care of everything that's kind of in the physical sense and the systems and what you've got going and set up in place, and understanding whether there's any gaps in that that can be trimmed and honed, and a bit more clarity around those. And then kind of going, all right, well, actually the systems are in place for that. So maybe I've just got a belief that it's going to cost me $100 to make $1 marketing, you know, and kind of like going, okay, well, actually my systems and what's going on externally is great. So it must be something internal this time.
Yes. And I want to add a third angle, actually, which is sometimes, and this is where inner guidance or intuition comes in, or gut feel, because we can also, and I did this with a friend quite a long time ago. He came up with a way to do, he called it resonance mapping. And so it's basically the most basic form is, you know, you write down the list of all the marketing related, in this case, marketing related things you have to do. And then using whatever your method is for intuition and inner guidance to number them, to say which one has number 1, 2, 3, 4, however many. And then, you know, or you assign a number between 1 and 10, and then you order them in the from 1 to 10, and then you focus on the one that has the, you know, the top number, if you like. So let's say that 10 has the highest value and 1 the lowest. Then you focus on all the 10s or that are at the higher upper scale of the list. And that way you will also focus on, you will move the pieces that will have the biggest impact in, you know, sort of overall, if you know what I mean. We might not understand it intellectually or logically at the time, but if we focus on the numbers that we have attributed the highest value, I mean, as in listening intuitively, not from a logical, this is what I, you know, should do, then everything else will also come together. So it can be limiting belief, it can be systems things and system thing, and we can also be moving might not move the pieces in a way that will gain the most flow energetically. And so, because I've had the experience myself where I've tried to push something through because I think that I should be doing it now, or I feel like, oh, pressure, people are expecting me to do this, and so I need to push through now. And it's hard work. Oh my God, it's like pushing through a brick wall, and there's no flow, no energy, and no inspiration. And I was like, okay, this clearly is not the right time. This is what I've learned over the last, you know, how many years. And so I want to offer that being open also to that, to see where is there lightness in this, because the way that we can block things is if we stay too much in the linear and logical. And I actually did a very quick story. When I first started to explore this in my job role, every morning I said, okay, so just in sitting down in quieting myself, like not meditation, but, you know, sitting and resting for a little bit, I said, okay, so what are the 3 things that I need to focus on first today? And whatever came up in my mind, I wrote them down, and then, you know, I would set about, you know, start my workday. And sometimes very often that was not according to my to-do list in my calendar. But I trusted. I said, okay, for a few weeks, I'm going to try this. So I started working through the three things. And over time, I could see that, you know, by doing that, there were then additional information coming into the mix that helped me with things that I thought I had to do first, but actually I could not have done as efficiently had I started with it in that morning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So,
so do you do that kind of just before, like you get into your work mode, like whether that's at your desk or at your workplace or wherever work mode is for whoever's watching, and then just literally sit down and the very first thing you do before you turn on your computer and you just ask, what are the three things, like just take a moment, breathe, ground, and then just ask, what are the three things I need to do first today?
yeah. Yes.
And then just allow whatever comes through.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, I don't do it every day, so I'm gonna be honest about that. But absolutely, and I have it. For me, it's also, I started off doing it as a once a day thing because I wanted to try it out. I didn't trust it to begin with. I thought, nah, you know, it can't be this easy kind of thing. But now it's an ongoing thing. So I tune in, you know, or I'm present with the things that I need to do on an ongoing basis, if you like.
Yes, and I suppose if someone is wondering the next step in their business, for example, that is something that they could sit there and just listen to. And it's not something that takes 5 hours of being like, okay, where's the answer? Where's the answer? Where's the answer? You're literally waiting for the first thing. So if someone's got 3 options in front of them in their business, and one is to spend money on marketing, the other is to spend money on systems, and the other is to spend money on staff, if they can just sit there and put those 3 options down on paper and go, okay, well, which one of these should I be focusing on? And then, as you said, either number order them or wait for the one that they're supposed to do. They essentially could have the answer for the direction that their intuition wants them to lead to relatively quickly, instead of getting caught up in the story of why they should be picking marketing or why they should be picking systems, and just going with whichever way the intuition leads.
Yes, absolutely. That's beautifully put. Thank you. That's brilliant.
Okay. No, that's great. Like, that's really good, because it means, like, if people are sitting down to do their yearly review on their company or their quarterly, or they could do it once a month, sort of a review on where they're at and what they're doing moving forward. They could do it once a week, where they're at moving forward. They could do it once a day. Like, you could really tailor that style of checking in to whichever time frame suits you as a person and as an entrepreneur, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can use this, apply this in you know, in any situation, any area of our lives, really. And so absolutely, both business and personal. So brilliant.
No, that's amazing. Like, love that. That's such a great tip for people. So so if someone has never really felt that intuition, how would they go about actually understanding what the yeses and nos feel like? I know you said for you it's like an arm squeeze. Did you just ask, how did you go about figuring out that that's what you needed to do for you?
And you know, this has been a long journey over a few years. So I've gone through phases. So it started off with a squeeze, and then, you know, with the whole pendulum thing, I was like, can't bring a pendulum to the office. So I literally asked, okay, so how can I feel the pendulum? I don't know actually how I phrased it at the time, but how can I get the answer in me instead of using a pendulum? And as it happened, a bit woo-woo, but I could feel a pendulum moving in my throat. So I knew what the yes was for using a pendulum, and I know what a no is. And so I could feel the movements. And then that has progressed over time. And so now I still feel the squeezes sometimes, but I have a different way. I know my body now. So I know, and it's an instant knowing. It's not necessarily always a physical sensation either. But I would say you can, I don't know, kinesiology it can be a very, very helpful path to understand what how your body responds to, or gives you information. So I sometimes use this actually when I'm going to have food. I go to the fridge and I, for example, am I to have eggs for breakfast? I hold the eggs, and then if I'm being pulled forward, that's a yes. If I feel a slight sort of falling backwards, then that's a no. So that's one way to use kinesiology. Well, I call it kinesiology. There's also a way where you hold your thumb and fingers like this, and you ask questions. And when I can't do this for myself, so I'm not I'm not experienced in using this method, but that's another way. You can very easily find ways where you can get the signal from the body. And for those who are sort of inspired by more of a spiritual woo-woo thing, and I say woo-woo with love, by the way, try a pendulum and see, to understand what and also ask your body to show you what a yes is, and you can start by asking, the question you're asking, is my name whatever the name is, and see what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. I literally love kinesiology. For anyone who wants to Google that, kinesiology can be used a lot for figuring out whether if you've got any allergies or beliefs. Actually, I was going to bring this up in a minute about what we're talking about earlier. And then, the kinesiology also has a little bit of a base in muscle testing, which is where you do get these sort of things, is muscle testing, and you can do it with your arm and, that sort of thing. So I personally love kinesiology. That's awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. So then if we were to go back to that question of someone knowing whether it's a systems issue or a beliefs issue, they can literally just on the spot test and go, okay, well, is this a systems issue or is this a beliefs issue?
Yeah.
And then I suppose that if you were that person, in theory, and if you know how to do the work, or whether you get the work facilitated through someone else, you can test that the belief obviously is there in the first place. But then once you do the clearing, you can test on whether or not that belief is still there.
Yes, absolutely. That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, because I'm not well versed in kinesiology. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I actually love it. I heard about it first with allergies and that sort of thing, and being able to find allergies and understanding the allergies and learning about that sort of thing from an allergy perspective is great, because it shows you the physical response. And I think that with things like kinesiology and listening to your intuition, the more you start to trust the process, the less you need the physical response to confirm it. And the more you can just start moving into from the physical, I've got an allergy, to, okay, well, is this belief valid, or is this not a belief, or, and then after a bit more practice, potentially depending on your experience with this sort of things, then you're moving into what you're doing, which is this a yes, I should move in this direction, or a not, which is really just honing in on the intuition. And so I guess the question I would ask is, was it a gradual process of learning and trusting to listen to the intuition over time to get you to where you are now?
Yes. And I've as I think I mentioned earlier, I did commit in 2009 to follow my intuition. And so that luckily I had a partner in this process. So when I started out, we helped each other by, co-sensing, that's how we call it. But I would listen with my intuition, and he would listen with his tools, and then we would compare, so that if we then had similar answers, great. If we had different answers, it's like, oh, okay, there's more information for us here. So it's I think it's, if you can find a partner to explore this with, that's great. Can be a friend, can be a coach, can be anybody really. And then yes, it is a gradual process, because as we get more adept at listening to it, then more opportunities are also going to come our way. And I've felt this thing that I want to add for some time now, that there is incredible intelligence in the field or around us that we can't see. And so, you know, we're all connected at some level, and so whatever happens, or everything that happens is rippling everywhere, really, you know. And so I understand that might sort of feel a bit overwhelming and a bit, I don't know, out there, but I fully believe that, and I've experienced the intelligence from you know, following something that I can't see, which is, you know, or touch, which is intuition or guidance, if you like. So it's been incredibly helpful, an incredible journey.
Yeah, and I also love that you've talked about the co-creation process. So for someone who is in a business, like as even a soulpreneur, like solopreneur, say they wanted to bring someone on as a marketing person, they could both have that process, as you're saying, where one of them does their thing and then the other person does their thing, and then they come back together to see which way things should co-create together, which I think is a really nice way of having a co-creation business, as opposed to you having to do all the work yourself. You can co-create with the team around you.
Yes, indeed.
Amazing. I love that. How do you connect within, both inside and outside of business?
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier, and I thought, okay, so the two things that came forward for me are, you know, the deep listening, which is using inner guidance and intuition, and we've talked a lot about that today, because that's the path I've chosen to stay connected, you know, to connected within, both in all areas of my life, really. The other one is non-judgment or forgiveness. And I came along my path. I've come to know that, and I accept that everybody's doing the best they can with what they think or believe that they have access to at that time. It doesn't mean that I would approve or you know, condone actions or decisions, but I believe that we all do the best we can. And so, you know, to be open and non-judgmental that's another another piece for me.
Yeah. And that's great. Thank you. And then what would you say are your top 3 tips for soul-aligned entrepreneurs?
Yes. Looking at my notes over here. Sorry. So it's explore and uncover what your inner guidance looks like. That's one piece. The other is establish who you want to be as a soulful leader, or, you know, run your soul-led business or your soul-led entrepreneurship. So how you need to show up every day. In alignment with that, and then identify your values and what your lived experience, what your lived experience is when you're in alignment, because then you in my experience, you can never go wrong with that, honestly.
I love that. No, I love that. All of those 3 things that you talk about just help you to get to more clarity, you know, with your life and your journey. So I literally love that. So thank you. If anyone did want to, like, what would you say your number one resource would be for a soul-led entrepreneur?
Yeah, I was again thinking about this, and I thought, okay, so actually I'm going to say Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And although that is might be considered in some circles as a pure like business book, or, you know, personal development, I don't know, but I feel like understanding our why, and that comes, if I sort of connect it back to what I said earlier, you know, it connects with values, it connects with who we want to be as a human being or a leader, or a soul-led entrepreneur, and so I feel like that's a good resource. There are many others, but that was the one that came to mind first.
Yeah, no, that's totally amazing. Thank you. Much appreciated. So if people wanted to find you, where would they be able to look to get in contact with you? And yeah.
Right, yes. So my website, mariabeck.com, my last name Beck, BAECK.com. That's one sort of central resource. Then I've recently created a quiz that's called the Soulful Leader Quiz, which takes the temperature of where we are at a specific time in terms of how our strengths as a soulful leader and our learning edge as a soulful leader. And that can be found on soulfulleaderquiz.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone's going to go and try that, because that's just such a handy resource to have access to and just check in with where you're at. So yeah, I think that's really, really awesome. So if you haven't checked that out, go and check that out, guys. But yeah, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's been amazing to chat to you.
Thank you, Simone. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. This is warms my heart and soul. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And I know everyone would have got so much value out of this. So everybody just go and check out Maria, and go and see what she's up to and connect in with her, because it just all sounds amazing. And really, learning to understand who you are and lead from within is just, it's a really beautiful concept that once you can grasp that, it's just really going to change your trajectory.
Yes.
So.